Hello, it's Robert Whitaker with Journeys Through Time, Hansford County, HansfordHeritage.com. Episode 27 today is Jesse Davis, pharmacist at Gordon's Drug for many years. Recently, I think it was January the 8th. Today is January the 13th. On January the 8th, High Plains Observer and Jenna Gillespie ran an article that was written about Jesse Davis retiring. And this would have been back in 1993 when he retired. 67 years of being a pharmacist. He retired in 1993. At the time of this recording, which was recorded in 1974, he was 70 years old then. He had a radio show for 6 years. Where he talked about his things that he had in his scrapbook, things that were philosophical or humorous were a part of his scrapbook. I don't know if any of his relatives in Spearman today still have, well, I think there's more than one scrapbook. I think there's several that are actually probably spoken of in this. He came to Spearman in 1941. He was born in Lipscomb County. So he's born in the county seat, Lipscomb, and then actually was in Higgins. His parents raised him in Higgins. Came to Spearman in 1941 after he had, graduated from OU and become a pharmacist. His dad was a medical doctor, and he became a pharmacist. So this is a great episode. This interview is really fantastic. Jesse jumps into some of these interviews that are done in 1974. You'll hear him on the Lawrence Wilbanks interview that I published earlier today. You'll hear him on some others also that I'll be publishing in the future. But a well-known, well-loved man in Spearman for many years. What a great person with a great legacy. And I believe his granddaughter is fulfilling that legacy. You might know her, and that would be Samantha Wilkerson over at the Hansford County Pharmacy. Enjoy episode 27.
Thank you very much, and welcome everyone to our program today, a beautiful Monday in Spearman. The Spearman information this morning brought to you by Hopper's A&W Drive-In, where you'll find those fabulous Hopper's sandwiches of all kinds, and especially those frosty, delicious Hopper's A&W root beer. Coy, they brought some root beer by the station here Saturday for Gary and Dwayne, or Gary and Andy. So thanks to Bill Hopper for that little gesture. We appreciate it. They're our sponsors for Spearman information today. And Coy Palmer back from vacation. We're going to put him back to work right off the bat. And
scared to death. But we have our guest this morning. He's a stranger in these parts, and you probably won't ever know who he is when we have him talking, because how many years, Jesse? Jesse Davis is our guest. And Jesse, how many years were you on radio out here?
6 years.
6 years with Jesse's scrapbook. We're going to start that. Hey, you know what? We've been trying to force Jesse to start this program for, I guess, a year now. And all of you people who would like to have that special feature of Jesse's scrapbook back on the air, why don't you just start calling us, and let's make old Jesse feel good this morning. There's the first call right now.
Phone's already ringing.
And Friday, there's the other one ringing. You take all the phone calls and give us the numbers, and in a few minutes here we'll check up and see how we've done.
Well, George, I don't want to butt in, but there's one thing that you was talking about A&W, old Bill Hopper. Have you ever tried any of his tacos?
Yes, sir, and they're out of this world.
You mean Jose's tacos?
Is that Jose?
Jose Hopper's tacos.
Well, I'll recommend them. They're real good.
And that's coming from Jesse Davis himself. We're going to talk to Jesse about the early days. He's from Higgins, actually. He's not a Spearmanite. I don't guess anybody in Spearman can remember when he wasn't a Spearmanite, but he comes from the sand hills of Higgins. And we'll talk about all of those early days, plus the modern times, right after this message from Jose Hopper. Our guest this morning is Jesse Davis. And we'd like to put out an appeal once again. If you would like for us to get back Jesse's special program that he had, you know, he built a scrapbook that's 14 feet thick or something like that. And several people presented him scrapbooks. Who was that old boy that presented the scrapbook to you, Jesse? That
Gus Goose.
Gus Goosegrease, yes. And Gus is gone now.
Gus is gone.
But that was a great feature. Anyhow, if you'd like to have that special feature, it'd be about a 10-minute feature every day with Jesse Davis and his scrapbook. Many, many philosophical things along through it, and a lot of humor as well. Why don't you give us a call here, and we'll try to force Jesse into starting another career in his youthful days here. Jesse, when were you born? You don't mind telling us your age, do you?
I was born on the longest day of the year in 1904.
That must have been December the 21st.
Well, now, the calendar says December the 21st, Coy, but my mother always argued with the calendar. She said the 22nd was a longer day than the 21st.
Uh-huh. So you were born on the 22nd. You were almost a Christmas gift then, weren't you?
Well, 6 months.
Halfway there.
December the 22nd, is
No,
that June?
the longest day would be June 22nd, isn't it?
No, June 21st is
June
by the
21st.
calendar.
Okay.
By my mother, June the 22nd was
June
the
the
longest
22nd.
day.
Are you a Gemini then?
No, I'm the first day of Cancer, and they tell me that Gemini laps over onto Cancer.
So
On
you're
the first
kind of a Duke's mixture then.
Right.
And were you born at Higgins?
No, I was born in Lipscomb.
Lipscomb. In Lipscomb County, and in Lipscomb. Is Lipscomb still in existence?
Oh, yeah, Lipscomb's still the county seat.
Well, where did I get Higgins? You later were in business at Higgins, weren't you?
Well, yeah. You see, we moved to Higgins when I was 11 months old.
And so, well, I guess you're almost a native Higgins boy then.
Right.
And your dad was Dr. Davis, and one of the great so-called country doctors, the circuit riding doctor.
Yeah, he starved to death down in Fairfield County, Texas, when the bull wheels hit down there in about 1903, and moved to Higgins.
And was that greener pastures?
Much greener.
Cow.
He had a friend that loaned him a horse, and later on, this friend gave him a buggy and 2 horses.
And that's how he got around from one patient to another.
That's right.
How far would a doctor go in those days, Jesse?
Oh, miles. Yeah, I'd have to cross Wolf Creek, and you know that was full of quicksand. That was north, of course, and oh, he went every direction. But the thing about it, when he came home, he had the money in his pocket.
Well, you know what? In those days, it seemed like every time somebody really was sick and needed a doctor, there was big rain and the streams were all up. Can you remember those?
No, I sure can't.
I can remember several times. We lived on a stream that would always get up in the spring of the year and through the summer, and it seemed like every time there was sickness across that creek, the doctor would have to be swimming a horse across there. And doctors had to be pretty good horsemen as well as doctors in those days.
Right. You see, they would come after him on horseback, because that was a short time before the telephone.
That's right. And in an emergency, if they thought he needed to be there quicker, he didn't go in the buggy. He'd get on their horse and ride back.
That's right.
And they had special saddlebags for the doctor's medical supplies.
Yeah, and we lost that in 1947 during the tornado. Lost his saddlebags.
My goodness. That would have been a priceless thing, wouldn't it?
It sure would.
And you never did know what happened to them again.
No.
Well, they may be still somewhere, or somebody may have found them. But were you in that tornado, Jesse?
No, I was living in Spearman.
Was your dad there?
It happened that due to a death in the family way down below Waco, they were down there the night of the tornado.
They probably would have.
It tore their house up.
And so it was fortunate they were gone.
Right.
And When did your dad pass on, Jesse?
Corey, I can't give you the exact date, but I think it was, it's been about 12 years ago.
And about 2 years before this radio station came to Spearman.
Yeah.
And he was one of the great country doctors. Was he still living in Higgins at the time?
Oh, yes.
Had he retired?
Yeah,
And
practically.
You have an oil painting of your dad, I believe.
I have, I don't want to advertise for anybody exactly, but,
Well, it don't hurt to advertise for him. Go ahead.
okay. Dord Fitz, who's a well-known artist, lived at,
That's right. He was from that country.
yeah, he lived just south of Higgins and was taking art in Alva, Oklahoma at that time when he made this painting. Well, Dr. Newman over at Shattuck and my dad both did sittings for Dord, and the babies that they had delivered into the world donated money to Dord for these paintings. And until this day, I think that's the best painting that Dord Fitz has ever made.
It's really a great picture. I, of course, never knew your dad, but it's a great portrait.
You have seen it.
Yes, I've seen it several times. Now let's get down to the modern days of Jesse Davis. 19 and 4, you said. That means you're 70 years young, or will be in June.
That's right.
And still working every day. By golly, that's something.
Most usually an awful lot of hours, too, isn't it, Jesse?
Yeah, but I've cut my hours down.
Well, I want to relate a little story to you. About a year ago, I was having some back trouble, and it just so happened that it came upon a time when I had to come over here on a Sunday morning and sign a station on the air, and my back was just tearing me to pieces. I couldn't move, I couldn't get up or sit down or lay down or fall down or anything else. And in sheer desperation, I, at the recommendation of my wife, called Jesse at home, and this was in the wee hours on Sunday morning. And Jesse, being the trooper that he is, jumped out of bed and ran down to the pharmacy and got me some pills that relieved the pain, and I was able to go on and make it through the day. But I just wonder, Jesse, how many calls you get like that during the course of a week? Or,
Well, anymore, I don't get too many calls.
People have begun to respect Jesse's long years of tenure, but
Right.
Jesse has really been a great one.
Just like
Everybody's friend.
yesterday, I only had 2 calls, but my partner had 5. So you see, they are showing me a little respect, really.
I know I hesitate to call Jesse when I'm in a real stretch like that, but sometimes I have. And I've called Jesse in the middle of the night. And I suppose that everyone that's lived here any length of time at all has at one time or other called Jesse during the middle of the night, because he's been so willing to be of service to the people. For those of you who are newcomers and don't know what Jesse's profession is, he's a pharmacist at Gordon's Drug. And he's been a pharmacist here in Spearman. How many years, Jesse?
32 and a half years.
32 and a half years.
Well, it'll be 33 on my birthday.
And of course, you were a pharmacist long before you came to Spearman. You at one time had a drugstore in Higgins, I believe.
Right. I had one in Higgins, I had one in Shattuck, I had one in another town in Oklahoma I can't think of right now. In fact, I don't much want to think of it. But these were all back during the Depression, Corey, and
You could do a lot of business, but you couldn't collect money.
couldn't get any money.
Because people didn't have money.
Even in those days, it took money to run a store.
And you just couldn't make them go. But you're a graduate of Oklahoma University.
Right.
And
1926.
And I guess you've, through the years, enjoyed the success of the Sooners,
That's right.
the Big Red.
In fact, that's about the only football games I'll watch is OU when they play.
Did you play football when you were
Oh,
young?
no.
You were a trombone player, weren't you?
Saxophone.
Saxophone player.
Well,
hey, I didn't know this.
And
oh, I was a good one.
you still have your sax?
No, I have no idea where it might be. In fact, I had 4. I don't know whether you ever saw a C saxophone or not.
Yes,
Well, not a C melody. I had a C melody, but this was a long, straight sax built
No.
like a clarinet.
No, never did.
Then I had one of those small B-flat alto, or no, I had an E-flat alto,
B-flat.
B-flat soprano, and a B-flat tenor.
Yeah.
And also an E-flat, it was one of those big jobs that you play bass with.
Yeah. The baritone or the bass sax?
No, it's in between the baritone and the bass sax. The bass is sure enough a big sax.
Yeah, it is. Well, you've had a lot of saxophones in your time, and I imagine you were a one-man band. Did you play in combos?
No, there wasn't anything like a combo then,
Big
but
bands.
I did have my own orchestra.
I
For a
would
while.
recall. What was the name of the orchestra?
I don't know whether we had a name or not.
I had an orchestra once in college called the Campus Cats. I thought maybe you might have have something like that.
No, I didn't have any.
But you played for dances in Oklahoma University.
No. Ed Higgins and Canadian and Arnett and Shattuck.
Around in places like that.
Yeah,
And
that was after I got out of school.
that was in the days when you thought enough, you enjoyed playing so much that sometimes you'd play for nothing in those places. $1.50 or maybe hamburgers.
Well, not very much.
How about when you came to Spearman? Let's talk about that. That's 32 and a half years ago.
Mhm.
What was Spearman like then?
Well, Coy, when I first moved to Spearman, had I had any money, I could have bought nearly any lot in town for taxes.
Is that right?
That is right. And there's been a lot of changes in the last 33 years.
33 years ago, that'd be back to 40.
41, I think it was, wasn't it, Jesse?
I came here on my birthday, like I said, the 22nd of June, 6 months before Pearl Harbor.
Uh-huh. And the Depression was not over at that time. We were
Not
beginning-
completely, I'll tell you.
A lot of, as you said, a lot of places here up for sale for taxes. And the farmers certainly hadn't pulled out of the Depression
No.
at that time. Some of them were doing a little better. What could you buy a section of land for then?
Well, I have no idea, but I had an old friend that bought some land out here near what we used to call the old black schoolhouse. It's not there anymore. And I remember he bought that in 1922 or 3 for $22 an acre. And that included the mineral rights. In fact, I don't think they knew anything about minerals in those days.
It was always on the abstract, but the people that bought it paid
know
no
what it
attention.
meant.
No.
Well, they hadn't hit oil here then when you...
Oh, no.
Well, how big was Spearman when you came? 1,500 or so?
I would guess about 1,200.
About 1,200.
Mm-hmm.
And thriving little town at that, wasn't it?
Well, not too thriving, really. But I do remember that, you see, Bruce Sheets got me to move over here.
We were going to bring that up as to how you came to Spearman.
Yeah, he's the one that got me to move here. And I intended to stay about 6 months.
You almost worked into a regular job, didn't you?
Well, I decided to stay here the rest of my life.
And so, sure enough, you haven't yet, but I guess you will.
I intend to.
You have a few friends here, Jesse. I suppose there's no one in town that has more friends than Jesse Davis.
Coy, you're lying, but I like it.
Jesse was the Citizen of the Year how many years ago, Jesse?
69.
And at the Chamber of Commerce this year, you got quite a surprise there, didn't you?
Oh, my.
As a master of ceremonies, and the Toastmaster, or whatever we might call him, Jesse introduced the one who had introduced the Employee of the Year and found out that it was going to be his daughter. And It's quite a shock to both of you, wasn't it, Jesse?
I like to fell over. I had to cry a little bit.
Well, I think it was a good cry, though.
It sure was.
Let's talk a little later to Jesse about Bruce Sheets and how they came here and what the town was like, and if there were any doctors here then, and just what the situation was, and bring it up to date. We'll do that right after this message from Hoppers A&W. Okay, our guest this morning is Jesse Davis, and we have quite a few calls, I think 4 or 5 already, and we'd like to know if you'd like for us to force Jesse Davis into having his scrapbook back on the air. You remember it, all of you old-timers, when he was on the air every morning on Hospital Reports and had a special feature right from Jesse's scrapbook. And a lot of philosophy and just a wonderful, jolly time with a lot of good thoughts every day. If you'd like to have that regular feature, why don't you give us a call? Maybe we can twist Jesse's arm and get him to. 2529.
Coy, do you remember the very first thing I ever said on the radio when you started us out?
No, I don't, Jesse. Do you?
Yeah.
What was it?
Let's see if I can quote it exactly. It was a thought for the day. Let's see. Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday.
So that's real good.
I remember that just as well.
Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday.
Right.
That has a lot of meaning. I have a little plaque someone gave me, I think my wife gave me. It's on my desk that says, today is the first day of the rest of your life.
Well, that's very similar. That's where I got this quotation, of course. You see, there's nothing original about anything I've ever said on the radio. It's just clippings. I have a... Well, my daughter gave me a special little knife that I take out these clippings with, and you talked about my scrapbook, how thick it was.
Uh-huh.
It finally got so thick it broke.
Is that right?
Yeah, so yeah.
Had to start all over.
Let's start all over. I just use sacks now.
Well, this scrapbook that Gus Goose greased.
Oh, well, that was, of course, I couldn't put anything in that. That's all complete. And he has poems in there and the like, and of course, I've received letters from all over the country from him, and I still have those.
They're priceless, too.
Oh, I wouldn't
They're
take anything for them.
Because some of them came from
It turned out to be a real good friend of mine who was a paraplegic, and of course we accused half a dozen people in the country of being
we
this.
one time just knew who it was. That it was.
Well, I even thought one time it was Coy Palmer.
And I'll tell you how they decided, George, that it wasn't me. They said it's just too clever.
Now, wait a minute. You never know what this guy's going to come up with, though, Jesse. I'll tell you, he's always full of surprises.
But this fellow was just tremendous, and he would mail letters to every part of the world, even some from foreign countries.
No, I've had them from New York and Cheyenne, Wyoming, and
San Francisco.
yeah, Oakland, California. But he had friends out there that he would mail these letters to, and then they would put them in the mail and send them back, you see.
And they'd have the postmark there. That was before the post office got so great that it...
He nearly got caught one night down at the post office himself, dropping a letter in the mail here. But see, the boys down there at the post office were very curious.
everyone was.
And they thought they'd catch somebody dropping the letter in the mail, and they nearly did.
And what did he do?
He eluded them. He got out of the way.
He was also asking for special boxes of candy at certain times, to leave them in certain places. And didn't you and Orville set a trap for him one night?
No, we didn't set any trap. That was a promise.
Oh, was it?
Yes, that was a promise that Orville made Gus Goosegrease, that he would not spy on him at all.
He'd just leave the candy there.
Yeah, and sure enough, next morning, while he was gone, he was hidden under a gunny sack out in the alley in a special spot that he designated.
Jesse, let me inject something here. Do you know Faye Cluck?
Yes?
Well, she just called and she said to tell you that the end of your verse is, "And all is well."
And all is well. I forgot part of it.
She wants to hear that program too, and so does Mrs. Vernon Hagerman, G.K. Ruprecht, Juanita Pierce, Nina Hendrick, Nina Hendrick, Nina Hendrick and Vicki Bullard, and I don't know if we've gotten any other calls or not, but Faye Clark especially wanted you to have that part of her message there. And all is well.
Thanks a lot, Faye.
Now let's say the whole saying now. Today is the tomorrow.
Today is the tomorrow you worried about yesterday, and all is well.
That's real good. That's fine. Now, Jesse, let's get back to when Bruce Sheets hired you. Of course, we're going to have Bruce Sheets on here one of these days soon for this special feature that we're having. And you came to kind of as a relief man to help him out for about 6 months. Was that right?
No. I hired out to him. But I didn't think I would like Spearman, so I just thought stay here about 6 months and drift on somewhere else.
Uh-huh. And you got to like Spearman. And were there any doctors here then?
Oh, yeah. We had 2 doctors, Dr. Gibner and Dr. Gower.
And
they've later passed on.
And then there was a time that you didn't have any doctors.
Well, just for a short time.
But I think there are many, many people here in Spearman who used Jesse Davis to help them rear their children in those days when we didn't have doctors here. They've told me about it, and what a great friend Jesse has been to everyone that's ever met him anytime, and to those that haven't. Because here's a man that I can say without reservation has no enemies, because he just doesn't do anything or say anything that's against anybody. And he's everybody's friend.
Well, I don't know anything against anybody.
Well, that's wonderful. You told me one time a story, and I think you had this on the air one time, about a fellow that was hunting a place to settle down, and he asked about the people there. You want to relate that story?
Well, Coy, I don't recall what you're talking about.
Well, he asked this fellow, said, "How are the people here in this town?" Said, "I'm hunting a town where there's some friendly people." And the fellow asked him, said, "How were the people back where you came from?" Now you recall the story.
Well, I don't recall exactly, but I know what I'd say. There's good people everywhere. It's owing to the way you treat them, the way you get along. If you had enemies and didn't like the people where you lived, why, it's
you probably have the same thing.
Yeah.
That's the gist.
But there's good people everywhere. I've lived in several towns and have always met good people.
Now, Jesse, when you came here, where was the bank? Or did we have 2 banks?
No. At one time there was 2 banks here, but when I moved here, the bank was over there on the corner.
Where the ASC office is.
That's right.
And where was the drugstore?
The drugstore, it was in the building where little Roy Russell.
Douglas
Douglas Duds. That's where it was.
And when did it move to? You had a fountain at that time.
Oh yeah. In fact, we had the only fountain in the county at that time.
And what were the days like? And did you have one of these big old tanks that you had to shake to get your?
No. Bruce had
I had one of those at one time.
I did too in the first drugstore I had.
What kind of a tank you talking
Tell
about?
him about that, Jesse. For your carbonated water.
Well, this was a gas tank that held water. I think it'd hold about 10, 15 gallons of water. And you'd turn on the same gas that we use now, for our Cokes and the like. But it was on a rocker, and it had a long handle on it. You just push it backwards and forwards and rock that water till the gas was saturated into this water and made carbonated water.
Formed a pressure.
Nowadays, it's done by electric motor, on a pump.
And it formed a pressure in there so that when you turned the little spigot up above to put carbonated water into the Coke, it had pressure enough to push it through there. And you push that handle one way and you got carbonated water, you push it the other way and you got plain water.
You remember?
No, no.
That's the way one did that I had.
I'll bet you that you're wrong, Coy, because
Probably had another faucet.
you'd push it two ways, all right.
Yeah, that's
But
right.
you push it one way, and it had a
Fizz.
fine stream that would fizz, and you push it the other way, and you get a coarse stream.
Yeah, that's right. And you're right as you can be. But you can tell I worked behind a fountain one time.
Yeah, I believe you did.
What was the name of those people that worked behind the fountains in those days, Jesse? Now, you were a pharmacist, but there was a slang term for people that...
I don't remember.
Well, you'd say, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, I'm jerking soda."
Yeah, that's right. Soda jerker.
Or a soda skeet.
Soda skeet.
But that's George. You're too young to remember any of that.
Oh, no, I'm not, but I can't visualize you, Coy, being a soda jerk.
Well, for 2 years in college, I was a soda jerk. 10 cents an hour.
Pretty good wage.
Well, if you get there early enough so that the boss wasn't there, you could probably steal a dish of ice cream now and then.
Well,
We got lots of
seeing,
time, Jesse.
yeah, well, I don't know whether Jim thinks I have lots of time or not. That's what I was worrying about.
Hang on, Jim. He'll be there in an hour or two. Then, where was the rest of the town? Were there any? There wasn't any shopping center at that time, was there?
Oh no, there was no shopping center, and all this new addition out here that we have now was a wheat field when I moved here.
And how about the
Even where I live was just it wasn't a wheat field, but it sure was a lot of cuckleburrs and grassburrs out there.
And how about the crops? Did they grow any milo at that time?
Oh yes, but we didn't have any irrigation.
I was going to ask that next. No irrigation.
No
So
irrigation.
just
It was
depended
all
upon-
dry land crop.
And just dependent upon the rains.
Where TG and Y is, I have seen wheat stacked up as high as the Picture Show building, practically.
Just dumped it there then.
Well, the elevators and trains couldn't get it out of the country fast enough.
Was that ground or pavement there then? It's just ground.
Oh, yeah, and the rats were pretty prevalent, too.
Uh-huh. Now, there wasn't any high school where the high school building is now.
No, the only building, of course, is what we call junior high now.
Uh-huh. And that was the entire school.
That was the entire school.
How about athletic teams in those days?
Well, as you know, I'm not very crazy about athletics, so I don't remember.
Well, I remember.
I do know at that time, I knew every school teacher in town, and now I don't know half of them.
Because there's so many of them.
Yeah, there's so many of them.
But I remember where the football field was in those days. And it was
Yeah, you
close to
were
where-
living in Stinnett at that time,
That's
weren't
right. And we played Spearman, a football game. And I believe in the fall of 41, it might have been the fall of 40, that we were up here. And a fellow by the name of Washington was the coach of the Spearman Lynx at that time.
you?
And
Well, he lives in Florida now, I believe.
yeah, and we all called him George. And I've forgotten what George's first name was, really. But anyhow, he and I played basketball on an independent team together and went all over the country. But when we got on that football field, we weren't friends at all.
No.
And I got a boy hurt in that game in the second quarter and took him up to Dr. Gibner's office and was there with him the rest of the game. I never did see the rest of the game, but the Lynx won, I think 13-12 or 13-7, one of the two. It was a close ball game. But it was out in the pasture. There weren't any bleachers.
No.
We played in the afternoon and just kind of took a grubbing hoe and dug off the line and had the goal post up there. but the crowd all just gathered around and stood around the sidelines. So it's quite a change since then, isn't it?
Well, it's hard to explain just how many changes there has been made. It's phenomenal, really.
Now, when did they get oil here?
Was that a good word, phenomenal?
Yes, phenomenal is a very fine word.
Okay, then, good.
Well, how about do you remember when the oil first came here?
No. It's been several years ago, of course, and of course we kind of had a little boom on, which has subsided now, but we still have several companies that are very faithful to Spearman, stay here, and I think they're to be congratulated.
And they add a lot to our economy here.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Spearman showed that it was one of the most modern thinking towns in America when it built the type of building it did for the schoolhouse up there.
That's right.
And I guess there were lots of contests on that voting. I understand there's 2 or 3 votes difference in whether they'd have it one way or another.
I don't remember how many votes difference there was, but I do know that a lot of people were against a windowless school, and I think they've been won over by now, don't you?
Well, it's proven to be pretty satisfactory. It's easier and much more economical to heat as well as to air condition, and they haven't noticed the difference in not having windows.
Of course, the hallway in this school is tornado-proof, should one come a-dropping in on us, but what do you think about the earthquake? Would it be earthquake-proof?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't think there's anything earthquake-proof if it's strong enough. But have you ever witnessed another earthquake in this country besides that one?
Well, I was here, of course, in 1954. I was walking around and messing around, but I'll tell you, all the girls behind the fountain felt it.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Did the dishes rattle down there?
I don't think so.
For Jesse, we're recording this interview with you for posterity's sake. We think there might be some historians or other people interested playing these tapes years from now, and so let's put a date on it. This is what date, George?
All right, it's February the 18th, 1974, and this is the day that the federal government has proclaimed as Washington's birthday, during this time period anyway. Of course, Washington's birthday isn't actually until, what, next Friday?
Well, it's the 22nd. I
Whatever
can
day.
remember that from my childhood.
Well, it actually, I read the other day, it was the 11th. But when they changed the calendar, why, it automatically made it the 22nd.
Was he born before the calendar changed?
I don't know. But when they accepted the new calendar, anyhow.
So actually, I guess we don't know exactly what date it was, but it was a tradition for many, many years to be celebrated the 22nd.
Jesse, here's some more people that have responded to the idea of you getting your scrapbook back on KBMF, and Virginia Head, of course you know her, and John and Jesse Schubert. You know both of those fine people.
You bet.
They've called up and said, yes, they want to have your program back on the air. So we're gaining on you, Jesse.
Going to have to twist his arm a little bit, but this is going to be a big help. If there's any others who would like to hear the scrapbook back on the air, Jesse Davis and his scrapbook, I don't know what we'll call it, but we'd sure like to hear from you. It'd help us to convince Jesse we need this program.
What time of day, Coy, would that be?
Well, let's let the people vote on it, I guess.
When they'd most like to hear it.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm afraid I wouldn't be too reliable because you couldn't pay me anything for it. It'd just be... Well, there's one thing I would request, though. You furnish me a little equipment.
We furnish you all the equipment you'll need.
We really think, seriously speaking, that this program is valuable, one that we would be able to sell to a network. Have that in mind. I've already done some preliminary work on it, and That would bring quite a bit of money, Jesse, if we could get a network to take it up. So,
You mean I could drop my Social Security then?
well, wouldn't want you to do that. Don't drop that Social Security, because that's something you paid for, and you're never going to get back what you paid.
No, and I'm not going to do anything to lose it, because I'm going to probably have to live on that.
But you see, as I understand it, you can work for yourself, and that's what you'd be doing in this thing. And
I think 2 hours a day, maybe. No, 45 hours a month.
I don't know. I'll be looking into that in about a year and see what see what it's all about. But Jesse, let's continue on now. Are there any major changes other than the rapid growth that we had in the 50s that you can think of? Are the people the same as they were in the 30s, except maybe they've got more money?
Why, Coy, I couldn't say that the people are any better than they were in the 30s. I think they're just about the same. Of course, we have a lot of new people. Oh, several of them have been transferred, of course, but they all say that they regret the move.
Jesse, there's a certain instrument that you had down at the drugstore. I wonder if it's a set of scales, actually. I've heard a lot of women say that they've weighed their babies every week on your scales at the drugstore. Do you still have those scales?
Oh, no.
What happened to
No.
them?
The only scales I have now are some that my dad used to have years ago, and I have them mounted in a shadow box, and they were real small.
But they wouldn't weigh babies. They were for weighing...
They were for weighing babies, yeah.
Were they?
Oh, yeah. It's a little instrument just about ½ inch across and maybe 4 inches tall. Has a hook on each end. And, of course, they'd have to wrap something around the baby and then hook it to this hook and hold the scales up. And, of course, they knew about how much a diaper or whatever it was they put around the baby to hold it.
How about...
Weigh.
Have you ever delivered any babies? You ever acted
Oh,
as
great
well?
goodness, no. I'm not about to.
You're not going to get into that profession.
I had the best chance in the world to be a doctor, but back in my early days, why, my dad would be called out on a real bad wintry night and have to rent a team and buggy and wouldn't bring home any money, and never got paid for things like that, so I didn't think that was a very good profession.
Jesse, did you ever make the rounds with your dad when you were a young man?
Oh, yes, I made rounds with him, but I never did call on the sick or anything like that. I just stay out in the...
Went along for the ride, didn't
That's
you?
all.
You drove.
No, didn't I? Well, I did after we got our Model T Ford.
That was kind of an invention, too, wasn't it?
Yeah, that Model T, how much longer is this deal going to last?
As long
Coy?
as you want it to. Go ahead.
Oh,
He's looking at his watch here.
well, I really need to get back down to that salt mine. But there's two things that my dad did with a Model T Ford. One of them is when he'd buy a new one, he'd have him take the engine down, and we'd take our old scales from the drugstore over there, and they'd find out which was the lightest piston. You see, in those days, they just pressed them. They didn't hone them and fix them up like they do now and balance them. In other words, Dad would take the skirts of these pistons and drill holes in them till every one of them weighed exactly the same. If you remember, an old Model T was a pretty rough running car. Well, his run just like a sewing machine.
Smooth.
Real smooth. And then he was the first to ever put a starter button on the dashboard. I don't know whether that means anything
Well, it
to you
sure
or not.
does, because I've cranked them anyway. Been a lot of broken arms cranking Model T.
Oh yeah, but I tell you why. It was, you know, they say that necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
Well, the reason of this was he carried his medicine bag under his feet, and the starter button was right there
In the way.
in the way, and he had him remove that and mount it on the dashboard.
Jesse, here are some other people who've responded that want to hear your program back on the air. Cassie Richardson called, also L.E. Wilbanks and Clark Jackson. They all want to hear that Jesse.
I don't think
That's
Claude Jackson.
Claude Jackson. Okay.
Oh, he was always giving me fits and and tell me where I made mistakes. Of course, sometimes, you know, I do that a little on purpose, just to rile old Claude up.
You never made any, really. You just kind of pitch one in now.
I pitch one in now and then, and
Just to see him get excited.
oh, he'd let me know about it.
Well, I guess, Jesse, that you wouldn't trade your life back and change it in any way.
Well, there's only one thing I'd do. I think if I had my life to live over, I'd save a little more money.
And, well, but you've enjoyed the money that you've spent.
Absolutely, I've enjoyed living.
Not much chance of you taking any of it with you anyhow.
They tell me there's not any pockets in shrouds. Is that right?
I don't know. I don't know. I've heard that, though. I've heard that. Well, Jesse, it's been real great to have you as our guest this morning. We're going to look forward to having you back with us on a regular feature. And we'll get our heads together and have a consultation as to when the best time would be and when we can start it. I think we've got enough people here to kind of twist your arm and see if we can't get you back in the harness again. We don't want you to ever retire because, goodness, if someone retires, they'll go fishing and we won't see them anymore.
Well, there's one lady's name I don't see on this list.
Let's get after her.
She may not be listening in, but she told me the other morning that she heard mentioned that I was going to be on the air, let's see, last Friday, and she said she'd be listening. And said she always did listen to me. So I'm a little bit disappointed that she hasn't called.
Who is this?
Well, that's Mrs. Guy Reamy.
Well, we haven't heard from her yet, but perhaps Mrs. Reamy will call. I hope she's listening.
Well, Ms. Reamy works, and she just might be real busy right at the moment.
Well, that's just probably the reason.
But she may call right away, too. Our guest this morning has been Jesse Davis, and we've just been reminiscing from way back in the early days of the before Depression days and through the Depression days and up to the present time. Jesse Davis is a pharmacist by profession. He's a friend to everyone by just choice.
Just by nature.
Yeah. And it's always a great pleasure to be with you, Jesse, anywhere. Down at the drugstore or down at the station or anywhere that we might chance to run into you. It's one of our great privileges to known Jesse Davis through the years.
Thank you, Corey, and thank you, George. I hope that Jim is not snowed under.
Well, by the way, Jesse, you did say that there must be an epidemic. Is it flu?
There's been more sickness this year, seems to me like, than any year I've been here.
Well, for those of us who have escaped it, we're very, very thankful to the Lord and thankful for our good health. You don't miss it until it's gone, do you, Jesse?
No, you don't.
Jesse Davis, our friend and guest this morning. Who's our guest tomorrow?
Corey, our guest will be Mike Garrison. He is one of the football coaches, or one of the coaches over at Spearman High School, and we're looking forward to visiting with Mike tomorrow. And we better mention that today's program has been brought by Hopper's A&W Drive-In. Jose Hopper and his tacos, but he's got all kinds of sandwiches, cheeseburgers, hamburgers, fish burgers.
Luscious, thick malts. There's not many people left that are making those kind of malts anymore.
Do I have one more second?
You bet.
Well, I'll tell you what. Don't call old Bill Hopper and tell him that you want your hamburgers in a gunny sack because he'll put them there. That's for sure. I called down there one time about a year ago and I said, Bill, I need 2 hamburgers with French fries in a gunny sack. And when I got down there, they were in a gunny sack. And that's no joking.
He'll do what you want done, won't he?
I bet you that was a joke as far as Bill was concerned.
Yeah, we've had a good time over that.
Bill and Garland Hopper, our hosts for the program this morning, and tomorrow we'll have Coach Mike Garrison. If you want to laugh a lot, you tune in tomorrow. We're going to cry because we're losing Mike. He's going to Plainview, and we're very sorry to lose him, but we're very glad that Mike is stepping up in the world, and he's very deserving of it. Until tomorrow morning, this is Coy Palmer and George Young and Jesse Davis saying, have a good day, everybody.